All right, guys, so we're going to discuss with you guys about why and when you could use a Hackamore for you and your horse. I know everybody's got a different situation, and so we all got different reasons for wanting to pursue this style of horsemanship or pursue utilizing this kind of a bridle. And so let's just go ahead and dive into when you could use it. When's the earliest I've ever used it? The first ride. For personal horses, I really like the Hackamore, and from a traditional vaquero sense, where a horse that would go from a Hackamore to a two-rein into the bridle, I really like challenging myself and challenging my own horsemanship and seeing how much I can get done with my horse in the Hackamore. I think there's things in the Hackamore, you have to be a more effective horseman, you have to be better with your hands, you have to communicate much more clear, you have to keep things very black and white, because there's things in a Hackamore that you can't necessarily get away with that you could in a snaffle bit, because the snaffle is obviously in the horse's most sensitive part of their body, that's in their mouth. And so sometimes we might be able to, manufacture something and make something get done, versus the Hackamore, it's very much set it up for the horse to figure it out. Now, of course, the principle should be the same in the snaffle, but that's not always the case when how certain people utilize that piece of equipment. But for you and your horse, how early could you use it? Well, if you're very, very familiar with the Hackamore and you're very confident in your own ability and how to explain to the horse how it works, you could use it in the first ride. But some of you guys might have 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 20-year-olds, whatever the case may be, that are already going under saddle, and this is something you're looking at possibly pursuing with your horse. So when could you use it? As soon as you feel confident enough that you understand how the piece of equipment works, that you understand how to fit it to your horse, you understand how to make sure that your reins are set up properly, how to care for it. Once you have your basic fundamentals, I think you need to go for it. Make sure you and your horse are in a quiet environment, something safe, not a big rodeo fest kind of deal, but maybe you're in the round pen or a quiet arena at home, and you're able to focus on you and your horse and trying to learn how the piece of equipment operates and how it feels to you, how you think it's affecting your horse, what your horse thinks of the whole situation. And so I just say be very cognizant about the environment you're in so that you can focus on what you're doing to help your horse. And so I don't think that there's an age necessarily outside of, just starting your horse when they're physically and mentally mature, but anywhere from the first ride to as soon as you're interested and you have the equipment home that's shaped up and ready to go, I say give it a shot. I really encourage people to use the Hackamore because I think it does make better horsemen. It makes you more effective with your hands and all that good stuff like I already went into. And so, but why should you use it? Goes back to wanting to be a better horseman. I think that, as far as explaining to our horses, and I look down the road, one of the reasons I really like the Hackamore myself is it challenges myself to be more effective. But also when I look at eventually being able to ride a horse one-handed, I think even your English horses, how nice would it be able to be that your horse is most well educated enough that you could ride him one-handed, but you're able to go two-handed if you're showing in the hunters and you need to ride around in a snaffle. But your horse is educated enough that when you're in the schooling arena, you can just ride them one-handed, even a snaffle or a Hackamore or something like that to prep them. But I like the Hackamore myself because even on a young colt for the first ride, or a horse that's never been ridden in the Hackamore, we can ride with our hands wide and we can teach them to pull left and pull right, basic steering, we can teach them to back up, we can teach them all the basics. But then over a period of time, as our hands get closer and closer together and our horses start to understand the signal that this Hackamore sends, and they start to find their balance in a vertical flexion, that we can start to ride in the Hackamore one-handed, because that's the ultimate goal, is to have a horse that you can ride one-handed. It's designed to be a one-handed device or one-handed bridle, because if you look at the history of it coming up from northern Mexico into southern California, those guys were roping cattle. They were roping and branding cattle. So if you're having to ride in a snaffle bit all the time that requires two hands based on the way it's designed, you can't do much roping when both your hands are tied up down here trying to ride your horse. So that Hackamore is designed that you can start green colts in it and teach them the basics. And then you can get them to going one-handed. You can teach them to neck rein, because your reins are hair reins and they have a lot of feel to them. So now you've got a horse that understands how to yield. You can ride one-handed and get them to pick up vertically, and you got your other hand free to catch some calves. And so it's a very functional piece of equipment that has a lot of meaning in behind it. And there's many of us that we don't have to rope calves on a daily basis, but we're trying to develop our horses into performance horses or just pleasure horses, but we're trying to challenge our horsemanship. And so from that sense, what's out there that's a better piece of equipment that is so versatile that you can ride them like a basic green colt that hardly knows how to go left and right, and eventually get them to the point to where they're riding one-handed and ready to go on to the next step in their education. So guys, you can start as soon as you're ready, as soon as your horse is ready to be rode, and as soon as you've got the equipment, you're ready to rock and go, and why you should do it. The sky's the limit. The sky's the limit on what you can do with the Hackamore. It's a great foundational piece. You know, it's kind of funny because here on the East Coast, you see a horse in the Hackamore and you're like, that thing's pretty advanced. You go across the Mississippi out west, you see a horse in the Hackamore, that horse is green. And so it's an interesting contrast from being on different parts of the world. But these Hackamores are meant for green horses, and they're going to make you make you a better hand, make you a better rider, a better equestrian, because you're going to have to be more effective in what you do. You teach a horse to lean in the Hackamore, the next thing you're going to have to teach your horse is how to not run through the Hackamore. And so I think that you're going to run into some trouble. You're going to run into teaching your horse some things you wish you didn't. But that's the journey of it. Then you get to turn back around and go fix those issues. It's not ideal, but it's not a perfect straight line all the time until you create a lot of Hackamore horses, or you start creating two-rein horses or bridle horses or FEI dressage horses or nice hunters or jumpers or whatever your forte is. You got to do a lot of it. And so a lot of you guys I know out there, you have your one or two personal horses, and you're just out here to learn and do the best you can. And so that's why we want to keep this very simple, demystify the complicatedness. This stuff is really basic. Buy the equipment, learn how to take care of it, go stick it on your horse, go have fun, figure out how it works, run into questions, seek advice from somebody who has more experience from you, and keep learning. Don't overcomplicate the whole thing, and don't get caught up on time frames and stuff like that. Go as fast as you're comfortable with and as slow as your horse needs you to. So guys, keep staying tuned for the rest of the series we're excited to bring to you.